and I will then let everyone in, yeah?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Morning.
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 Are we all on video?
They're all on. Yeah, but I'm
Some
on
of us
video.
are.
I have brushed my hair, Helen.
I'm very pleased to hear that, Eileen. So have I. I've washed mine.
Goodness
Come
me.
on, I want to see.
Hold on. It's still a work in progress for me.
Don't worry.
Right, there we are.
Oh, very smart. Very
And brushed.
impressed. Good morning, Teresa.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
How did your, I gather it was your council meeting last night. Did it go well?
Our first virtual annual council meeting, which was, yeah, something else, I have to say. But yeah, all went without any problems, which is exactly what we wanted, of course.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to. I'm Christophe Christou from Peabody is our host today. He's in charge of. He's king of mute, aren't you, Christophe?
Good morning, yes. Morning, everybody.
Good.
And morning, Paul Pritchard from Berkeley Homes. Morning, all.
Good morning, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
How are you?
Oh, very well. Are you in the office?
I am. Yes.
Ah,
Handful of us soldering on if we can.
jolly good. Jolly good. Do you, Mr. King of Zoom? How are we with numbers? Shall we kick off?
23 at the moment.
I think we go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll let people in as soon as they get here.
So are you going to keep us all on mute?
I think people are muted as they enter, and then they can I think it's best if everyone mutes while people are talking.
I think if we ask people to mute, and you can
Right.
also mute everyone, you know. That's why you're king of mute. Right, I'm going to kick off.
The power.
And the glory. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the South East London Chamber of Commerce first virtual breakfast meeting with the London Borough of Bexley, and we're delighted to have the leader of Bexley Council, excuse me. Hold on, I've got a.
Right, don't worry.
It's not.
You're right there, Helen.
Thank you. It's not COVID. It's just I think a bit of latter-day toast that's just gone down the wrong way.
It's too early. It's too early.
Apologies.
That's
Apologies.
the problem.
So, getting back to my spiel, we're delighted to have as our speaker today, Councillor Teresa O'Neill, the leader of Bexley Council, and Teresa is going to talk about the new normal. Now, we do have a few questions we're going to ask her afterwards that people have sent in, and then I'm hoping we're going to have a bit of an open time to have some Q&As from the floor. So I'm going to say, Councillor O'Neill, over to you, and I'm going to mute myself. And can everyone do the same and give Teresa the floor? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I hadn't realised it was the first one. And when we originally spoke about what the subject matter would be, and I said, well, let's talk about recovery, I hadn't actually realised how pertinent it would be. So it's really nice, and it's good timing to have this conversation. I think it's really important to start off with to sort of reconsider what the journey has been, the journey the council's been on, but I'm sure it's similar to what many of you've been on over the last couple of months. It seems to have been that life has changed considerably. And I suppose, like yourself, when the first announcement came out, we were sort of thinking about the vulnerable people in the over 70s and what impact that might have on our services. So we was sort of thinking about what we might need to step down so that we could concentrate on those people. And then, of course, there was that infamous speech from Boris on the Monday evening, and that effectively said we all went into lockdown, apart from key workers, and we were only allowed to leave our homes if we couldn't work from home or for essential shopping, caring for others, or exercise. That was a significant game changer. It meant that the way we worked had to change overnight, and our services with it, but also a lot of your businesses. Now, we were fortunate in the council. We had looked further ahead. Our IT kit that we bought when we moved into the new Civic in 2014 actually stood us in really good stead. So apart from adding some extra network capacity, the majority of our officers could actually work from home. But we had to stop a number of our services. So there's some of the services we'd have normally offered, you know, libraries, leisure centres and swimming pools, all had to be closed. But of course we needed to continue with essential safeguarding, social care, both adults and children, as well as housing and homelessness. You know, they were really important through this period. So we also had to change the way we delivered those services. I mean, if you think about it, we had people working from home. You couldn't have contact in the same way as you would have had before. And of course, a number of our staff had to isolate or became impacted. So that made a difference to our numbers. I suppose one of the good examples of what happened that really shows how things changed over that period was around our waste collection. So the first week of lockdown, the unions decided to call industrial action. So we had a backlog going into lockdown, which wasn't great. We had staff being poorly, of course. They were else self-isolating, again, expected. And then we had to be really careful about social distancing. So there was a disruption to the service. But we got there, we had disruption, but services now resumed and residents were really understanding through that period. And I'm grateful for that, because without them and their patience, it really wouldn't have been easy. But in addition to our existing responsibilities, and we did maintain our statutory responsibilities, we had to take on a number of new roles. So we became responsible for residents that were either on the official shield list or were vulnerable. So if they needed food, medicines, etc., and were isolated, we needed to help them. We wanted to help them. And fortunately, there were an army of volunteers in Bexley that wanted to help us do that, and that was terrific. The personal protective equipment, or PPE as we're all now calling it, you know, frankly, we needed to protect our own staff, but there were also care homes, and we wanted to help make sure they had a supply. It was great. Again, local residents came forward with donations, etc. But we also made sure we plugged in and had a regular supply coming through. And we worked with schools to ensure our vulnerable children and the children of key workers could continue to go to school. So all this debate at the moment about reopening schools, I live opposite a school. It's been open all the way through. And we've been so successful at that. Our cabinet member has been so successful with the officers in the team. Actually, the DfE have been coming to us looking for guidance, which is fantastic. And of course, our parks and open spaces became really important. If you lived in a flat, you needed to get out. You know, actually, that social interaction, that getting the fresh air was really important. So we early doors made sure that we could keep our parks open, but it wasn't easy. We had to work at that. And we also got extra responsibilities about supporting local businesses through issuing grants or, of course, the business rate relief. Of the 5,500 local business accounts we've got, over 3,000 of them got business rate relief, and over 2,500 have got grants. There's about 157, we think, that are eligible left, and we're continuing to try and do that. And of course, now there's lots of talk of us being involved in the test, track, trace and isolate going forward. And quite right, new responsibilities, but we'll take them on. Many of these things we've done for our residents, and they wouldn't have been possible on our own. Local partnerships, like with yourselves, have proven to be strong and successful, and that's really good. From a democratic point of view, we just had a conversation about, meetings, etc. And we had our first virtual annual council meeting last night. But let's be honest about it, meetings didn't fit in for the reasons that people could leave home. So we closed down a number of our meetings. Cabinet members and myself fronted questions from other members, and members were out there getting their hands dirty. They were volunteering and helping with the people that were in isolation. We moved to those virtual meetings. We started with the internal ones, and I have to say I've been blown away by the enthusiasm of members, especially the older members, that really got in there and said, actually, this can help us going forward. Absolutely fantastic. And we've got our first virtual mayor, which is terrific. The one thing that really hit home to me that's been really key through all of this has been communication, both national and local. Of course, most of that has had to be electronic, but it's been fantastic the way the community has pulled together and everyone's been kept informed. We've come a long way over that period, and moving from a position of not knowing what the future offered to most people now thinking about what we're talking about today and what the new normal will look like, what the impact is, and what changes can be taken on board. Of course, all of that isn't necessarily in our hands. Some of it will depend on how lockdown is eased. But I've been really inspired by our residents. They really have taken the problem, the dense sort of feeling and the severity of it all, and they've turned it into something that's positive with a can-do attitude. During that period, it's been really, really difficult, hasn't it? You know, many shops closed their doors, supermarkets were overrun, and, you know, we got panic buying and all the rest of it. But they started to lift now. And I have to say, my heart was warmed to see the queues outside like local shops, such as the butchers and the bakers. And I hope that remains, because those local businesses have been invaluable and continue to be invaluable. And I hope that will be for a long time. When you think about it, isn't it fantastic the way the supermarkets as well were quick to innovate? You know, all the social distancing measures that they took on board. I think public transport could have learned some lessons for them. And cash all but disappeared overnight. I took some money out before it all started. I think I've still got some of it. No, the reality is, from using cash to now, we just don't. And that might help small businesses, but actually we've got to be careful we don't leave those behind that aren't techie friendly. Some of our council services have stopped. We retained our statutory services, but we will need to consider how we bring them back, whether we bring them back, and when we bring them back. Our local partnerships, as I said, have been invaluable, and volunteers. There was a call for volunteers. The local voluntary sector were overwhelmed by people from the volunteering in Bexley. Frankly, we've got to galvanise that. We've got to take it forward, and we've got to keep those people informed. Crime went down. Bexley's gone back to being the second safest borough in London. That's fantastic. And everyone appeared to get better because the GP surgeries in their A&E emptied out. It'd be fantastic to keep some of that, wouldn't it? And we're being encouraged not to use public transport, to leave it to the key workers. And no doubt when the mayor finally gets it sorted, there may be some of those ideas that we saw through the Olympics of staggered times, avoiding hubs, and encouraging cycling and walking so that social distancing can be respected. But there's been a lot of vulnerable people who haven't been outside their homes since March, haven't seen their family and friends, except for perhaps when they were dropping off shopping or medication. And if they don't use the internet, their world has got very, very small. I do wonder what the impact of lockdown will be on their mental well-being, especially if they've had family and friends that have been poorly or have still passed away and they haven't been able to see them. Many people have adjusted to working from home, or for those people furloughed, not working at all. The nation seems to have been divided into those who are busy and those that are bored. That will be interesting to see what happens as a result of that. And if people have worked from home successfully, will they want to continue doing so? And actually, will employers consider it to be a more efficient way of working? Conceivably, there's savings to be had on tight budgets with home working. So we may see some changes in office accommodation going forward. I think for me, the Dunkirk spirit really came through. I felt we became kinder and we looked out for others during the period. We recognised the value of people we can't do without. Yes, the nurses and the doctors, but also the shop workers and the dustmen and the postmen and the teachers and all those people that we don't normally recognise. And I think we do need to. I bet most of you have had similar thoughts over the period, and you're now considering the future of your businesses. Some of the change will be out of our hands, as I said. I suspect social distancing will be with us until a vaccine is found to either protect us from catching the virus or an effective treatment to deal with it. And of course, the financial impact of the virus will need to be considered. But I am absolutely convinced we won't return to doing exactly the same as we did before March 2020. There will be a new normal that will take on some of the things that we've learned to do, but our lives will have adapted and hopefully we will take the good things from it. The virus has had an awful impact on local people. Some have passed away or been very poorly. But if anything good is to come from this, we shouldn't lose the good bits, people being kinder. We shouldn't lose some of the learning, virtual meetings and the new ways of working. And we have to learn to turn some of the challenges into opportunities. The one thing I'm convinced of that the last 6 weeks have shown us, apart from really valuing my hairdresser, is that we're capable of change. The world we live in won't ever be the same again. The new normal is a moving target with things we miss slowly returning, but perhaps with slight changes, that some people will choose a different way of life as a result of the experience, and some may have their lives changed without choice. But how that happens is in our hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teresa. That was really, and very encouraging as well, very positive. I just wanted to say that you are actually, this is the first virtual breakfast meeting we've had with Bexley, but we did go virtual quite early on in this unusual world. And in fact, I think it was 31st of March, we had a joint business event with Danny Thorpe, the Royal Borough, and we've actually had 3 of those, and they were afternoon events, and that so that was our first step. And then we've had 2 board meetings so far on Zoom. Christophe, you know, king of you there for sure. And last week we had a breakfast with Mayor Egan, Damien Egan.
Yep.
And we're waiting for dates from Bromley for another breakfast. And I think the leader of the Royal Borough, Danny, is getting a wee bit jealous because he wants to also have a breakfast meeting because he's done the afternoon shift. So we feel, and we know as a chamber, that a lot of our things will be online in future. So, and you must feel so proud because your big project, wasn't it, was the Civic Centre? That's your baby. I remember you telling me that.
It was,
and good IT.
Yes.
So brilliant.
Stood us in good stead.
You lucky you. And we're going to, so I've got a few questions. Some of you may have covered some of them, but I'm going to read them out. And then if you could answer them, and then hopefully we'll hear from the questionee. So Marcello, I hope you're with us. So I've got one from Marcello Babanti from UNI PLC. Marcello's question is, has COVID forced the council to reassess its long-term priorities and objectives? If so, what are they, and how can the private sector and local business support the council in realising the priorities?
So as some of what I've already said, very, very quickly we had to reassess our priorities because obviously our residents came first. So that was the initial. But longer term, there is a conversation about the change in face of Bexley. We absolutely need to take on board the opportunities that this presents for us and to encourage local. As I said, you know, actually it's fantastic to see the bakers and the butchers, but I have to say I have concerns about the hospitality industry coming back. You know, how do we get our pubs reopened? I'd love to go out for a meal with friends. You know, it seems like a hell of a long time since we've been able to do that. You know, all of those business, we've got to be able to help them going forward. It's not going to be easy, and of course our budgets have been smashed to pieces, so we're needing to keep on top of things as well within the council to be able to look after those people that need our support. But yes, we are looking at everything going forward, and we will work with businesses.
Thank you, Marcella. Would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Cllr.Teresa. No, thank you, Helen. It's going to be an interesting time over the coming months once the dust kind of settles and we kind of, you know, open the dialogue about, how do we capitalize on these changes and how do we, you know, instigate it so that we do make permanent changes, because there has been a lot of tragedy, but like you say, a lot of positives.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Thank you, Marcella. And actually, from all our virtual meetings, this is localism, redefining localism, basically, is the thing that is coming through everywhere. Absolutely. And I must give, at our other virtual meetings, we've had Claire Pritchard, who's the chair of the London Food Board. Claire's the CEO of GCDA, but she cannot be with us today because she's wearing her London Food Board hat as we speak. So apologies from Claire, because she's been giving us food distribution updates. So I now have another question from Louise Woolsey, London South East Colleges. Louise's question is, from Councillor O'Neill's conversations with business so far, does the leader have a sense yet of the possible skills and training needs that the borough will need to help them in the recovery phase of COVID-19?
So, hi Louise. I think the first thing is about how we get businesses back and how they may need to change. So, you know, depending on the business involved, you may need to social distance, have more space. You know, if you think about it, our hot desking in the past may not be feasible at the moment, etc. So it may be skills that people need to get their businesses back quickly. But longer term, I have to say my concern is people losing jobs. You know, how many of those furloughed people may actually need new skills? I know it's a conversation we've had on a number of occasions about it's not just being about youngsters being trained to do jobs, but it's also people being retrained. Yeah, we all know we'll change careers within our lifetimes nowadays, whereas perhaps we may not have done in the old days. But actually, this could well be a time when people will need to change their careers. And of course, that's when yourselves can come into play, because you'll be able to help that. We will still need to have houses built and you know, all the shops and all the retail and all the rest of it. It may be done in a different way, but yeah, I think we're going to be counting on you to be looking to retrain people that might need support going forward.
Louise, would you like to unmute?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Teresa. Lovely to hear from you today. You know, we think the same. Clearly, we're still going to be focused on trying to ensure that young people who have had their education interrupted this summer, many are still learning. You know, schools have done a good job in terms of keeping them focused. Yeah. But, you know, not having their exams and having more time on their hands, we know that's a challenge for them. So we're working hard on that. Hopefully, we're with you in terms of trying to think what will this impact have on adults in the longer term. And many of us in any of our roles could be the types of people who could be affected like that. It's not your average adult learner who might sometimes need the support of college. It's a completely new scenario. So we are thinking about that a lot, talking to businesses across the boroughs, talking to all kinds of stakeholders to kind of try and get a second guess really in terms of direction of travel. We think a lot of it will be about further work like this, enabling people to work online with the digital skills for both as individuals and as companies, but there's probably other opportunities as well. So I appreciate your contribution on that today. Thank you.
If I could, so I agree with you. The schools have been fantastic. For me, the schools in Bexley really stepped up to the mark. You know, they created hubs, all of that. They have kept open. But actually, going forward, perhaps virtual meetings opens up something else. You know, I've long been an advocate of the fact that employers should be talking to schools to tell the schools what skills they need so that the young people learn those skills while they're at school, while they're at college, and therefore the employers are getting the people they want with the skills they want going forward. Perhaps virtual meetings will open that up. Because I don't think we've ever really cracked it, Louise. We've worked really hard at it, haven't we? But we've never really cracked it. Perhaps that's some good that can come out of this.
Definitely, I think you're on the money there.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next question is from Sean Hetherington, Stewart and Partners. And Sean's question is, whilst I appreciate the council will have significant pressure on budgets, and we need to look at all income streams, would the council consider re-looking at surface car parking charges? Taking Welling as an example, the shopping area was in decline before COVID-19, and without encouragement to bring people back to the high street, they will remain shopping online or going elsewhere. The business is not asking for a free all-day parking, but as is common in many other places, a 2-hour visit will be a big step forward. Over to you, Teresa.
Sean, I'm going to level with you. We're going to have to consider all options. But insofar as many people are saying to us we want parking, I've also got the cycling brigade on to be saying taking all the cars off the streets. So you've got a balancing act as a council leader and as councillors to try and keep everyone happy at the same time. It's not always possible. We will also have one mega black hole in our budgets because the reality is our income has been shot to pieces. That's conversations I've been having elsewhere. Fortunately, I'm quite well plugged into government, so I'm able to have those conversations elsewhere. Government have been good in giving us some money up front to be able to cover the costs that we had immediately. But this is a longer term impact. So yes, we'll need to work with businesses. We want to get our high streets open. We want to get people back in. We want to get people back. The hospitality industry really worries me in Bexley. You know, how do we get our pubs open, you know, our restaurants open, etc., etc. And we need to work with you. So I can't promise you free parking, but I can promise you we'll be thinking about all of those sorts of things.
Thank you. Sean, would you like to join us?
Okay, thank you, Teresa. I appreciate you know, going forward. Clearly, there isn't a silver bullet that's going to solve all these problems. It's just that, you know, as I say, habits are going to have changed in terms of the retail sector, and without taking some actions to try and stimulate that, it's likely that that decline will continue with more pace than previous to the COVID-19 outbreak. But thank you for your efforts.
So it's all right, and you have my absolute assurance we will continue to do so, and we will continue to seek your views. We have tried to keep our parking charges down so that they are affordable, but it will be a number of things that we need to look at. It's not just one, but I think we all have the same thing at heart.
Thank you. And I've got another question now from Paul Pritchard of Berkeley Homes. And Paul's question is, what does the leader see as Bexley's priorities and their recovery plans as we see through the social, economic and community consequences of the current pandemic? And how might South East London Chamber members assist in this?
So Paul, as Berkeley Homes, I've already had a conversation with Tony Peachley during during lockdown, and we're really pleased actually that a number of the sites in Bexley that are building homes have reopened and reopened safely, and that's been fantastic. Frankly, people will still need homes going forward. They will still need affordable homes going forward, and Bexley gives a quality of life that actually people want. Where we will need to think about things though is, well, there's transport. So actually people packing onto trains going into London, is that feasible going forward? Will more people be working from home, and therefore does that put a different slant onto digital? There are lots of those things that we are going to need to be considering going forward. So it's kind of a staged thing. We dealt with the original aftermath of it all. We needed to make sure people were safe, and then you move into sort of different categories. I'm still adamant that we need to bring back our housing strategy and have that conversation, but there's some learning from this period that we will need to consider as part of that. And we'll also all want to be talking about climate change, because actually there is no doubt that with all the cars off the road at the moment, or throughout the period, that has made a significant difference to the air quality.
Thank you. Paul, would you like to say something?
Indeed. Thank you, Teresa. That's very helpful. I thought it was very forward thinking to hear that the council had invested in IT such that you're able to deal with our current situation better. I think others haven't fared as well. As you therefore know, in talking to Tony, we have tried to continue to deliver homes quite safely throughout London. It's a very different place, but it's about trying to collectively support our trade partners in maintaining employment. Because consequently, we're seeing a lot of that happening even internally within Berkeley. So I think we are very much encouraged by the learnings and the observations that we're all making, and you stated earlier. And I think the future is definitely more about a balanced home and sort of office environment. And yeah, the immediate impacts on climate has been phenomenal. The stats are proving that, and I think that's something we as a business have always worked to. But yeah, look forward to helping deliver all of that as we move forward with yourselves. Thank you.
I know as well that Tony is a big advocate for creating place. So around Cllr.Brook Village, etc., etc. The one thing that we found out of all of this, we've got over 100 parks and open spaces, and actually they have been pivotal in keeping people in a good place throughout all of this. People have so enjoyed going for a walk in the park, especially if they don't live in a house and aren't fortunate enough to have a garden. So actually falling into the Berkeleys, creating places for people to go, green space and all of that has really been so important, and that is one of the learnings that come out of this.
I completely agree, and I think we need to preserve and protect those green spaces we have and create more where we can. Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have one final question from Cllr.Teresa, who's our host, and although I don't think he's actually exercising being king of mute, we're all doing it ourselves. But Cllr.'s question is, are Bexley planning on supporting businesses to increase their digital skills so that where possible, businesses are able to move some of their services online?
So, Cllr., if you'd have heard some of the early council meetings with councillors, what button do I push next? It was hilarious, I have to tell you. Actually, I've been amazed at how people have flipped on. You said you've gone pretty much virtual overnight. We have. I've been absolutely amazed at the way people have taken to all of this. We need to build on that. But of course, there's also the infrastructure. So whilst I've been quite fortunate because, I'm on BT and mine has been a fairly good service, some of the other services perhaps haven't been as good. And where we've worked with people to make ourselves one of the better connected boroughs in London, perhaps some more work to do there as well. I'm sure Louise will pick up through the college some of that learning as well. You know, 'tis the future, isn't it? And I am sure we're going to have more people that are going to be working from home, not least because actually in offices there would be the need for more space. So you're going to have those conversations about spreading people out.
Thank you. If I could just say one thing, what did come out of our last virtual business meeting with Greenwich a few weeks ago, we had the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Greenwich, and Louise had asked a question, and what's actually happening, that we're forging within the Chambers area, all, you know, the colleges of further education, so we've got two of those, and then all the universities, we're going to get together, it's a recovery group basically, everyone's to really identify training needs for the future. So this links in, be they, you know, younger people or older people or lots of people in the middle. So and in Louise, I've got an update on that, so I'll be emailing you very shortly. What I'd like to do now is I think if we all stay muted, but Christophe, people can raise their hands on the little more thing if they like. So we're going to take some questions. Over to you, Christophe.
I mean, I just wanted to come back there, Councillor, and just say, yeah, absolutely. I think sight of opportunities is one thing, but access to them, especially in the digital world, is we're finding that a challenge. And like you say, some businesses have pivoted really well and have set up, you know, beforehand and thought about it. And there's other businesses that are really falling behind. So not only in regards to people's skills, but it's businesses falling behind due to, you know, their online presence. But also just we very much support a collaborative approach over at Peabody, working with our developers like Paul and the team down there, local authorities, strategic partners. So, you know, we're very much happy to pool resource and come together collaboratively to support some of this work.
And if there's something you spot that we could be doing, we've not got buckets of money because actually there is no blank check around this, you know, let us know, because the reality is we want to work together. I think the one thing that has come out of this that we shouldn't lose is that partnership and we're all in it together type scenario. You know, we can build a better Bexley together. Absolutely. And that's what we need to do.
I hope he doesn't mind, but I must say Martin's been doing a fantastic job with the businesses that we've been working with. So good. Thank you very much, Martin.
Good.
Thanks, Christophe.
I think, Ellen, did you have a question?
Sorry. Yes, I did. Sorry, I've got myself stuck on unmuting myself. Right. I jumped the gun a little bit with the Q&As, but if you'd like to see if anyone else would like to answer a question.
So I think, Eileen, have you got your hand up there?
Thank you. It wasn't really a question for Teresa so much because I am one of Teresa's councillors, and part of my ward is Bexley Heath Broadway. So obviously I'm really, really interested in our shops and stuff. And so it's about, as Teresa says, how we individually contribute and take things forward. And so for me, while we've been in lockdown, I have to say, Amazon's been a godsend for myself and a number of our neighbours, particularly the ones who live on their own, and where we've had like the good stuff, where we've had new babies in the family, where we've been able to send stuff across to them instead of waiting. That's been really, really good. But it's occurred to me, and it's not like this has suddenly been a blow to the shopping malls and Broadways and high streets over Bexley, that there is something about us contributing to our restaurants, our hospitality, our shops, to keep going. So when we do come out of lockdown, I'm going to be more present in our Broadways and our shops and buying things locally and keeping away from Amazon, who has been a very good friend to me in lockdown. But actually, if I want our shopping streets to stay and be vibrant, which I do, then I'm going to have to make my own personal commitment there. And particularly in the hospitality thing and keeping the restaurants and pubs open, I'm very happy to make that commitment as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Eileen. You know, when you go past the bakers or the butchers, the long queues outside, and actually they're all really good humoured. There's some great conversations going on, you know, mindful of social distance and all the rest of it. Actually, we're going to have to do more. So our conversation going forward with the places like Bexley Heath is, what do we want Bexley Heath to look like? You know, actually, if the pubs can't open at the moment because people can't be in a confined space, do we need to talk about something outside? You know, the summer, it's lovely out there today. It would be lovely to be sitting outside somewhere having a coffee and a chat and all the rest of it. You know, you on licensing, not putting you in a bad place, but actually, have you got to think about this going forward? You know, have we got to think about different ways of doing things? Are people going to want to walk to the Broadway more, cycle to the Broadway more, or even to Welling or Old Bexley or Sidcup? You know, the reality is that we all need to work together, don't we? But we need to drive a better Bexley.
Christophe?
There's no other hands raised. Does anyone else have a question?
I think we've got, I just saw hi from Paul. I think Paul's got a question. Paul Pritchard.
A question as well, if I could, Helen.
Oh,
Sorry, I hadn't. I was just typing something. No, I'm done. Thank you,
Oh.
Helen.
Sorry.
You okay?
I've got a question. Can I ask
Yeah.
the councillor?
Yeah.
The question that I have for you, councillor, is that we are talking about this new norm. Now, as a business, okay, it's a good concept. It's a fancy concept for me. I mean, what do you envisage the new norm is going to be, say, come July or August, from your experience talking to other leaders around in the council,
Yeah.
from Treasury as well?
So I think this next period when we're going to be experiencing lockdown being lifted will probably happen in some shape until there is that vaccine or treatment for the virus. We certainly will be expecting to get some responsibilities for test, track, trace and isolate. That's quite an onerous responsibility, actually. So, you know, if we know that a school in Bexley has got, you know, a number of cases in it or whatever, then we're going to have to, you know, close that school down, tell everyone sort of connected to it, etc., to isolate for a period. So that will be the next part, the sort of the taking off of the lockdown. But in my opinion, there is no doubt that people will have changed their behaviours through this period, and a number of those changes won't go back. So whether it's the fact that we were all sort of facing the, oh my God, the whole world could end tomorrow type scenario, I need to reevaluate my life, or we're getting used to working from home, and therefore we'll consider, do we really want to be at late night meetings? Could we be doing it in a different way? You know, I personally have been saying to London councils for about 4 years, we need to be talking about teleconference, video conferencing, because actually me going up for a half-hour meeting that takes me a 3-hour round journey is not good use of my time for Bexley residents. And whilst they fought it for years, actually overnight they could bring it in. So there are changes that will be beneficial. There will be mindset changes. And I do worry, I really do, about the mental well-being of people being stuck indoors. You know, there will be people that will be frightened to leave their homes. and we've got to all help them, because the one good thing that's come out of this is the community have really stuck together, and I hope they will do so going forward.
So in terms of small businesses, what do you see as the new norm? Envisage what's going to be the new norm for small businesses going forward? Let's say from July, what any ideas, any hints or any tips that we can?
Well, I think you're going to be having the same thought processes as we are. So, do you want to be paying for an office if you can work successfully from home? Should you be meeting people in a different way? Are there other things that you can be doing? And I have to say, I'm amazed at the amount of people that started sending through job opportunities and business opportunities within the space of a week. I mean, the emails started going mad. So I am sure that people will find new ways of doing things that will be advantageous. I mean, we do need to turn these challenges into opportunities, and I bet you all will.
Louise, have you got a question there?
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying there about the kind of space, and we're already thinking about that in the college in terms of some of our support services and how we kind of help people be confident going forward, reduce degrees of anxiety, but actually be more efficient in terms of how we're operating. I exactly agree with you about kind of travelling time between meetings and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The other question I've kind of been thinking about, and this is a bit of left field, but that's kind of the space we're in at the moment, is if we give less space for offices because more of us can work remotely and more space becomes available, is there a way of repurposing some of that space for all the homes we need? And I'm not a fan of making tiny little homes in office blocks because that doesn't solve things, but actually this is the opportunity, I think, for us to really rethink the playbook and get some of these kind of people that have been on waiting lists and in poor accommodation and temporary accommodation for so long into a different space, because many companies will not need the kind of space that they need in the future. And I appreciate that's a challenge for people like Christophe and colleagues in terms of creating good quality homes for the future. We don't want people put in boxes, so to speak. But I just think it might present new opportunities in the future, just kind of putting it out there.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Louise. I started off a housing strategy year before last, and we've done a load of number crunching and learning throughout that period. But actually, I do think we need to learn from this period as well. So one of the simple things was Rose Bruford came to me and said, Christopher Court, students have gone home, that accommodation is there. Well, actually, Eileen will know, we've been having a conversation about could care leavers actually be better in that sort of accommodation where they have their own independence, but also have some sort of space where they can all support one another, etc. But we hadn't had the opportunity to do it up till then. But that offer has allowed us to actually try that out. So we need to learn from that. And if that's a possibility and if it's been a success, then we can do that going forward and build that into our plans. None of it will happen overnight, but actually it means that we'll be going in the right direction. The other thing that occurred to me was if a lot of people are going to be working from home, sometimes that can be quite isolating. So coming back to Eileen's point about the high streets, actually, is there an argument, and this is a discuss point rather than, a factual, is there an argument for more coffee shops with IT provision so people could have some of the social interaction that they may get at the office? The one thing that people are saying is, I miss having a coffee with my work colleagues. And, we all know there is that sort of networking aspect. Perhaps there's some of that opportunity within the high street to come. We just need to think differently, don't we?
I think that was very interesting. Do we have any more questions?
I think Mark, want to come in here, Mark?
Yeah, thank you, and good morning, everyone. I just thought there was a few comments there, especially Eileen's comment about Amazon and people returning to the high streets. My background is retail back in the day, and you know, the high street was all part of that. I think the one thing that Amazon have got right is their customer experience, and I think that if high streets and the businesses within those high streets can get that experience right, then they will see that return of footfall potentially, and they will see people wanting to use those services. And as in our world of measuring customer experience, you know, as Pete Townsend said, you know, meet the new boss is the same as the old boss. You know, it's the customer, and if you put the customer at the front of everything that you're thinking about, when you're thinking about, if your guest is thinking about, you know, what does it look like for small businesses in the future? If you put the customer at the front of that, chances are you'll be able to understand what it is your customers need, and you'll be able to position yourself wherever this new normal phrase looks like. But from my point of view, it's all about the customer experience, and if you get that right in the future, you'll succeed.
May I just ask a question, Mark? What area are you working in now? And what's your full name? I should have actually asked everyone to give their names.
Yeah, it's Mark. My name's Mark Perkins, and I have been involved with various networking events to do with the Chamber in the past. But I work for a company. Well, my own company is called Insight 6, and what we do is measure the customer experience through a wide variety of tools.
Thank you.
Helen, can I just make one example for Mark? I think it's really important, and it comes back to the using local. So I've got a local butcher who happens to be in my ward, Pickett's in Pickford Lane. They're fantastic. I went in there last Friday. I do some shopping for some people that are isolated. And I went in and I said, spotted, you've got no queue. And I rushed in. And I said, I'm doing it for someone else. I said, so, yeah, I'm going to give you the order, but you need to tell me what they generally have. And he said, he shouldn't need you coming in. He said, tell him to phone me next time if he wants something. He said, and if you haven't got the time, he said, I'll drop it off to him. And that's that customer experience you're talking about, Mark, isn't it? You know, that's someone local that's actually prepared to go the extra mile. But I do think some of that's come out of this experience, that we have become kinder and we've become a bit more receptive. And I certainly hope we don't drop that. I mean, I hope it continues.
I agree with that.
Well, I think we're all agreed there. Christophe, do we have any more questions?
It doesn't look like it, Helen, no. Unless anyone, no.
There's a couple of things on chat here. Are they questions that I should be answering, or is it people making comments?
I don't think there's any specific questions in there.
Oh, brilliant.
Unless I've missed any, but I don't think so. Oh, Carl, did Carl want to come in there? Where's Carl? Oh, hi, Carl.
I think Carl's unmuting.
Hi, morning everyone. This is my first visit. My name is Carl Nandu. My question is, I've just recently set up a business to help people that are disabled and vulnerable in their homes, pretty much in the sort of adaptation market. And one of the challenges is through a council that provides the service, and how you'd be able to help a small company engage much quicker than all of the policies and processes that there are to go through. That's been my biggest challenge, really, being seen maybe as a competitor through a home improvement agency. And as Mark said, it's about the customer experience, and it's about going the extra mile, which with all the stakeholders can be quite challenging for the end user. Pretty mind-boggling, to be honest, let alone somebody that doesn't have any disabilities. So how do you see that working, or where can there be some assistance to expedite the process to deliver a service? Because it does seem, yeah, it's challenging.
So I take it you're local, Carl.
I live in Luton Borough, but irrespective of wherever I am,
Near
I can
enough.
deliver
Yeah.
a service to a lot of boroughs because there's a need.
Drop me a line afterwards, and we'll put you in touch with the right people. That's generally, the best way of doing things, isn't it? To understand the service you offer, how that can fit in with what we need and what we provide. And it may well be that it's more of signposting rather than buying, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It may well be that, we put forward your information out there so that people can go to you directly. But if we can understand a bit more about what you do, then, it may help.
And may I jump in? And Carl, can you let the Chamber know as well? And we can always put it on to our other boroughs.
Terrific.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. So, Christophe? Mr. Host?
No more questions, I don't think.
No.
Unless
Right.
anyone would like to come forward now. I think we're good.
Nope. So, I think,
Sorry, is it still okay to have a question?
quick one now.
Yeah. Just wanted to ask how...
Sorry, can you give your name, please?
Sorry, it's Deborah, and I'm from Greenwich and Bexley Community Hospice.
Excellent.
So my question was just, how is the council going to support local charities who have been impacted by the lockdown in terms of fundraising, shops closed? What's that going to look like?
Well, that's a left field one. Hadn't really thought about that, if I'm honest about it. I think I probably need to take that one away. But actually, I think Greenwich and Bexley Hospice do a fantastic job. My own father was in there at the end of his life. I hold you guys in high esteem and do make donations from time to time. That's an interesting point, actually. Let me take that one away.
Deborah, if I can add, because you're a Chamber member and we try and do as much as we can with, helping with your fundraising. And if you've got anything you want us to put in our weekly e-zine, please ping it over.
I will, thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. So
Helen, we've got Eileen who just wants to ask one last quick question, I think. We've only got 2
Eileen,
minutes
the
left.
very last one.
It wasn't really a question. It might be helpful. So firstly, on the hospice thing, I'm a volunteer as well at the hospice as a befriender, but obviously we're doing telephone at the moment because we can't be with people. There is a link where they're taking donations. So if you want me to send it to you, Helen, and then you can send it out to the Chamber of Commerce, I know that the Chief Exec would be delighted because obviously this has impacted on the hospice just as it has with other charities across the board. So I've got a link from the Chief Exec, so I'll send that to you after the meeting. And if anyone wants to then donate or send that link out, you'll be doing such fantastic work, and I know they're going to appreciate it. So that was that. And the second thing, just going back to Carl about the adaptations for the homes, very much committed in our borough, as Teresa said, about keeping people in their own homes safely with a quality of life as long as they can be. So I think you'll be pushing an open door on that one, Carl.
Good. And thank you very much, Eileen. So, and if we can get that over, we'll put it in this week's, because I do see it coming in from different sources. And I was at a fundraiser just literally before lockdown for the hospice. So I know there was a bit of money in the pot there. But I would like to thank Teresa O'Neill for being a brilliant speaker this morning. And actually, I found it just so positive. Yes, I think we're all clapping away. So positive for our future and the new normal. And thank you, Teresa. So we're all clapping you virtually.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We look forward to our next, however we meet, be it online or maybe in person. We look forward to working with you and seeing you very soon. Thank you. Thank you to to the king of mute. Thank you, Christophe, for hosting. So if anyone would like to stay to network for a few minutes, over to you, and you can unmute yourselves. But thank you again, Teresa.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you.
Is anyone staying, going? How are we doing, Christophe?
I think everyone's leaving, which is fair enough.
That's all right.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much
for hosting it.
Yes, you were brilliant.
Thank you, Christophe. Thank
I'm
you.
a fair king. I let people mute and unmute themselves.
Bye. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
What's the email address? Christophe, have you got the email address for the councillor?
I should have it somewhere. Yeah,
or are you going to be sending it out? Sorry.
We can. I will get it over to you. I know we're connected on LinkedIn, and I think
that's right. Yes.
Christophe, I've got it. I can send it on to the Chamber of Commerce, and then you and Helen can send it out.
Yes, that's it.
Would that help?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right then. Take
Lovely.
care.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, Christophe. Bye.